on my router. Hey, good evening, everyone. Happy to be on the air tonight, off the air with the big fella. We try to do this thing on a regular, particularly when we have things going on in the community that's really important. So we got a very important race that's coming up, a mayoral race in the city of St. Louis. And I'm looking forward to having a conversation with both of the candidates. Uh, it should be very interesting. And this is what I'm going to ask our St. Louis folks in the city. I don't live in the city, so I don't have no what you say horse in this race. I don't have a horse in this race. However, it is important that we get out and express whomever you decide to vote for, you vote for. But it's very, very important that we get out there and uh, get some votes going, get an opportunity to, to do this thing. I mean, it's very important, guys. It is truly, truly important. So with that, I want to bring in the mayor candidate, Alderwoman Kara Spencer. Kara, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Let's get down. Why do you want to be the mayor of the city of St. Louis?
I mean, I want to be the mayor of the city. It's the greatest city in the nation. We have such untapped potential, but we have some real serious challenges. I got in public service 2015. I lived down here right along the river. And, I looked around my neighborhood. I saw needles in the street, boarded up shops, vacant buildings on just about every single block. And I thought, we need to turn these neighborhoods around. So I ran for office against a 20-year incumbent, against a guy who had all the endorsements, all the support, all the money. And the voters took a chance. They said, we're ready for change. We want change. And I got in there. The first thing I did was reopen the free public pool down here that the city had closed, put that back in work, and started to turn these neighborhoods around. And now these neighborhoods I represent down here in the 20th Ward are some of the fastest growing neighborhoods in the city. And I want to take that momentum, that energy, that potential, and take it citywide. We've got an enormous set of challenges here, obviously, but we've got an incredible opportunity with this federal stimulus package. If we use this right, we can address some of those major structural issues and turn our city into one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. Have an economy that works for everybody, streets that are paved, and vacant homes that have families in them. So that's why I want to serve as our city's next mayor.
But once again, we're talking about redeveloping the city of St. Louis. North St. Louis has always been neglected and not being a part of that whole picture of redevelopment. How can people, the voters, feel confident that if you become mayor, you're not going to do what other mayors have done in the past and turn their back on that Black community in North St. Louis?
Yeah, look, I mean, the skepticism is born in real lived experience. I don't begrudge that. I mean, that is a real reality. Leaders on the local level and the national and every level have failed our communities of color, particularly here in St. Louis. We have a real different lived experience. You can see that just when you drive into North St. Louis. You can see that when you drive into my neighborhood. I represent a minority majority community. The alleys look different. The housing stock. When I came in, we had vacant buildings on literally every single block. And what I can tell you is I cannot, not my words, but my work, the work I've done here in the 20th Ward by turning over half the city-owned parcels into the hands of private citizens, working on, getting the mow to own program in place, where if you live next to a city-owned vacant parcel, you can just own it if you're willing to mow it. And, really serving the community I represent. I will take that citywide and do the same thing. I do have a track record and a history and know how to bring investment into very challenged neighborhoods like the ones I represent. And it's important to recognize that we can't have a successful city without a successful North Side. And I'm prepared to make North St. Louis a successful part of our community. I mean, it is a successful part of our community.
What is your commitment to?
Go ahead, Demetrius. We're having a little delay here.
No, I understand. Yeah, we're on the folks. We're on a little delay. So if you see Kara or myself delaying our conversation because we have some type of delay on here. But my question would be to you, um, how do you, I hear we talk about the racism issues that's going on in our city. How would you try to galvanize the community to work together because you're talking about decades of racism
Yeah.
and division and separatism. What is your vision on that?
Well, we all have a role to play in breaking this down. I mean, when it comes down to it, the city of St. Louis is the most racially segregated city in the United States. I mean, just functionally speaking, where we live, the lived experience, the disparity in home ownership, the disparity in living in poverty. We have, people of color are 50 times more likely to live in poverty, in communities of concentrated poverty here. And the city of St. Louis is responsible for creating the Del Mar divide, going back 100 years, putting in housing covenants that required people live in neighborhoods that were, of one race. The city of St. Louis has a responsibility to undo that. And that's why when I put together my American Recovery Plan funding package, a good amount of it is dedicated to addressing the home ownership gap in our communities, giving people the tools, the money they need to buy their first home. I'm talking about real down payment assistance so that we have the tools to get folks into our housing stock in North St. Louis, that we can stabilize those ones that the city has owned sometimes for decades. They're falling down. Normal people don't have the tools to do the major tuck pointing and roofs. The city should come in, do that work, invest those recovery dollars into those structures and put families in them. And we can do that if we get serious about doing that. And I've pledged to do just that. We're going to spend the lion's share, the overwhelming majority of those funds north of Del Mar in communities that have, census tracts that have been disinvested in. I'm very, very serious about it. And I've made those commitments, and we're going to see real change.
For so long, we hear people, particularly folks get in office and saying they're going to really help the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
And Blacks and whites who's gotten into these particular positions have turned their back on the people who they say they're going to help and get them in office. What assurance do the community have that you will continue what your platform, what you're running on? How did that translate into your actions?
I can't, I understand the skepticism. It's real. I mean, I think we're all right to feel skepticism, especially given that my lived experience is very different. I am a white person, and I don't know what it's like to live in the United States in the city of St. Louis as a person of color. But what I can show you is I can only, gain trust through my actions. And so looking at the work I've done in the 20th Ward, serving this community by first breaking down one of the symbols that cities across the nation have engaged in with regards to racism, and that is the public pool. And the first thing I did was reopen that and invest in the rec center that houses it by bringing in a new boxing ring, putting in new boxing bags, investing in the dance studio, those after-school programs, and making sure our community has an improved experience for our kids. That has rejuvenated that neighborhood, not just doing what I felt like was right, but leaning in and listening to what the community wants. What should we be spending our tax dollars on? And it's rejuvenated an interest in that rec center and involved people that hadn't been involved for years. And it's been a beautiful thing to be a part of. I want to take that citywide, and I see the potential we have in every single one of our parks and rec centers. As the alderman, I took the limited funds we got and put it into those public spaces. Every single one of my parks got an upgrade in my first term in office, and I will continue to make those investments when I'm elected mayor. But you're right, the skepticism is real, and so my commitment is to continue doing that work and to show with my actions rather than my words, my commitment to be the mayor of every neighborhood of St. Louis.
Homeless people are living downtown. What type of program would you try to provide to assist the homeless people that's living downtown?
We have so many unhoused people in St. Louis, and that's partly because we carry the region's poverty. We have a concentrated poverty here in St. Louis. So, it really became very apparent, especially during the when the pandemic started, and we didn't have a plan. We failed to really coordinate, communicate well with the providers that are actually working with the unhoused. I helped bridge some of that as the chair of the Health and Human Services Committee and somebody who has a good relationship with the folks, those providers. So first, we're going to empower the providers that actually provide those services to make the financial decisions. The city of St. Louis is the recipient of a lot of federal funds, millions of dollars to serve our unhoused. And we make the decisions, the city, not we, the city makes the decisions right now. I'm going to transfer that and empower those providers to make those decisions. Secondly, we're going to make a housing first model. So that is going to get people into a long-term housing trajectory. And thirdly, we're going to weave those into successful neighborhoods. I talked a little bit about how the neighborhoods I represent down here are moving in the right direction. You're seeing a lot of investment, a lot of building rehabs down here. We are weaving in developments for the unhoused into the communities that are improving. So you're seeing a multi-million-dollar development down here on South Jefferson. Directly across the street is a development for the unhoused, and we're weaving those in together into those successful neighborhoods so that the developments for the unhoused can be as successful as they can. We're not concentrating them in one area.
You have the South St. Louis, North St. Louis, they are split. How would you make sure that both sides receive equal amount of assistance?
That is going to come down to accountability and transparency in how we spend funds. So taking those metrics and looking at, for example, when we talk about the American Recovery Plan, that $500 million that's coming to St. Louis, keeping those records on the public website, putting them out there on, having a regular audit of not just where we're spending those dollars and what they're being spent on, but geographically, what wards, what neighborhoods, what census tracts, and what do the demographics of those census tracts look like, so that we can make sure that we are getting the most bang for our buck and we're investing those dollars where they're needed most. The enormity of the financial aid package we're getting from the Biden-Harris administration here is because of our poverty, the economic stagnation, and the housing decay. And we are going to invest those dollars to address those three main issues where they need it most. And that is those primarily neighborhoods north of Del Mar.
The violence in our community is at all-time high. I mean, kids are getting murdered. Babies are getting murdered. What is your plan, and how will we attack this violence that's just destroying our city?
Oh, we had a teenager who was killed in this neighborhood early this morning. It is heartbreaking. I have a young son myself. This makes the 9th child this year to be killed in the city of St. Louis by gun violence. When I decided to run for mayor, violence has just got to be a top priority. I got serious about it by looking at what other cities are effectively doing to address violence, and went to those cities, talked to the professionals, those folks who have helped drive down the homicide rate, helped really address violence, and pulled in a 10-step crime plan, exactly what other cities are doing. We're going to start by premium programs, focused deterrence, focusing on those individuals most at risk for being involved in violence. We're going to get the basics right, like answering 911 calls. This is something that the city of St. Louis is not effectively doing right now. Over 30% of those calls are going to a recording. We're going to invest in public safety outside of the police department. What that looks like is a problem landlord unit, holding landlords accountable, investing in treatment of addiction, and going beyond and building trust. We have got to address the gulf, the enormous divide between our community and our law enforcement community. And that starts with addressing the fact that we are number one in the nation for police-involved homicide. Number one, not even by a little bit, but by a long shot. And so when I'm elected mayor, I announced yesterday I have a complete police reform package that I'm committing to putting in place the first 6 months. It looks like every single one of the Ferguson Commission report recommendations on police reform. We're going to get all those done in the first 6 months. I didn't just say that. We went through them line by line, and we feel confident we have a path to getting them all done. And we're going to make sure there are body cameras on every single officer. We address the hiccup, the unbelievably long amount of time we've spent trying to get something as simple as cameras on our police officers.
What is your plan on trying to restore the confidence in the police department, police officers, and the regular citizen, particularly the young Black boys and Black girls in the city who's been, treated unfairly in a lot of cases with the police officers? What is your plan to bring that together?
Yeah, I mean, the mayor's job really is to set that table unwaveringly and just relentlessly. We have got to heal that divide. And my experience is that the mistrust is often born in real lived experience. I have seen it too many times where, our police are not always sensitive to what's going on in our communities. I will, as mayor, have a zero tolerance policy for the racism, the structural and systemic racism in our police department. And we're going to root it out. I mean, we're going to move forward through this in a zero tolerance policy sense. So I think acknowledging that that is a major part of our issue. But again, I think what it really comes down to as well is making sure that we have a commitment. Our guiding post should be healing that, not furthering the divide. We need to heal it. And in order to heal that, we have to have difficult conversations, and we have to do them. We have to have them regularly, and we have to be willing to continue to do that, even when it's not successful the first, second, seventh time, but to continue to do that as our guidepost.
Kim Gardner has been under a lot of pressure from the police officers and a lot of people saying things about Kim Gardner, which the Black community, particularly myself, to transparency, support Kim Gardner.
Mm-hmm.
How would you create a working relationship, or do you have a working relationship with Kim Gardner and police reform and this criminal reform? What is your mindset on that?
Yes, I do have a working relationship with Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner, and I'm fully committed to working with her. I mean, her reform agenda is one that I agree with, and I support, and so working with her in her office to address the issues that they've identified with the police department, with those individual officers with whom she has issues. We're going to get to the bottom of it. And it's going to take sitting down and taking seriously those issues, because at the end of the day, we have to have our prosecutors and our police department working together, period. If we cannot do that, we cannot offer justice in the courts for the many victims of violent crime that we have right now in our city. We have to give those families justice in the courts, or we're going to continue to see justice play out in the streets. And that is a horrible future for all of us. So I am absolutely committed to moving through that with Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner. Be very clear about that.
What is your take on when people say we need to defund policing and the police department? What is your take on defunding the police department? And once again, I'd like you to reiterate, because this is a high priority. What is your plan to reduce crime?
Sure. I'm not in favor of defunding any public service at all. We've defunded health. We've defunded education. We've defunded services to the homeless. We've defunded substance abuse. This has resulted in an enormous disparity in our community on those who have and those who have not. So I do recognize that we have to have law enforcement responding when a young man's body is found in an alley, like we had this morning, a horrific situation, and when there's violence taking place. That being said, I do think it's important that we do this strategically. We have an enormous amount of work outside the police department that can drive public safety. So again, coming into these other components here, investing in mental health, investing in substance abuse. We have been very successful here in the 20th Ward by bringing in 2 substance abuse providers into the 20th Ward, working with the community who was not always in support of those types of organizations coming in, building confidence within the community by working with those providers and their neighbors to develop those relationships. And we need to take that approach citywide. Sometimes people are not comfortable with those things, but they, in the end, are good for everyone. And we need to expand those offerings so that we can start to address the issues, the root causes of violence and crime in our neighborhoods. And a lot of times that looks like mental health issues, substance abuse issues, and things that we can handle outside of the police department.
Kara, I'm going to give you 60 seconds to tell everyone in St. Louis or whomever, why should you be the next mayor and why should they vote for you?
Well, if like me, you believe that we are at a critical point in the city of St. Louis, that we're in the fight of our lives, and I believe we are, then I'd like you to imagine what St. Louis can look like 5 years from now if we actually invest in our communities and we hold landlords accountable and we inject in equitable development in every neighborhood like we've done here in the 20th Ward. If we get serious about addressing crime, not just with catchy phrases, but with a real crime plan that has worked in other cities, and bring it here and start to bring violence down in the city of St. Louis, and invest in small businesses and get those folks open running after COVID, and have an equitable economy that has a job, a place for everyone. With new leadership in the city of St. Louis, we can turn the page on the historical decline that we have seen over the last 4 decades. And I have been fighting on the right side of issues against the special interest, not once, not twice, but every single time in my service here to the city of St. Louis. And I know we can bring the momentum, the change that we've seen in the 20th Ward, and we can do that citywide.
Kara Spencer, thank you very much for joining me, and good luck in the race. I truly appreciate you taking time to address our audience. Thank you so much, and good luck.
Anytime. I hope you'll have me back soon.
Yes, ma'am. Take care.
All right. Bye.
That's Kara Spence. All right. What? Now, folks, it's my pleasure to have Treasurer Tashara Jones. Tashara, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Let me see, can she hear? Okay, great. Yeah, I can. And we may be on some type of delay. I don't know, something going on with my freaking sound system. So if we're on a delay, I apologize.
Okay.
Okay, so good. Yeah, so we on the same delay I had. So, but thank you very much. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be a part of this. Just to let people know who you are once again. And it's I'm really thankful that you came on our listening audience and our viewing audience. Let's get down to it. Why should people vote for you to be the mayor of the city of St. Louis?
Well, thank you for having me this evening again, Demetrius. It's good to see you. It's one thing to have a platform or a vision, but it's something totally different to actually execute that platform. And that's exactly what I've done in the treasurer's office the last 8 years. I'm the only candidate in this race that has the executive experience of executing a platform, the management experience of managing a budget of millions of dollars and a staff of hundreds of people, and relationships on the local, state, and national level to put St. Louis back on the map. We don't have time for leadership to learn on the job. We need a mayor who's ready to serve, govern, and unify on day one.
When you talk about a mayor ready to serve on day one, talk about your experience. How would your experience allow you to be an effective mayor immediately?
Yeah, so I've been serving in the executive branch of government for the last 8 years. I have transformed 2 city departments and created a third. I've transformed those departments to make sure that employee morale has increased, pay has also increased, benefits have increased, and services to the community have increased. I've transformed the parking division from a division that was, pretty predatory in past years, and now we're outward facing and we serve people. Big example is how we during the pandemic we shut down parking meters and let people, and that way they didn't have to worry about paying for parking as they went to pick up groceries or pick up food for their family. And when we reopened with new software to allow people to set up payment plans if they had high balances. We had an amnesty program that allowed people to pay off outstanding balances. It saved people hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I want to take the same spirit of ingenuity, the same spirit or of being compassionate and enforcing the law at the same time to the mayor's office.
When you talk about North St. Louis, we've seen North St. Louis is just in that terrible shape. What is your vision on redevelopment of North St. Louis?
Well, I'm the only candidate in this race that was born and raised in North St. Louis. And so it's personal for me. I spent most of my youth in the Hamilton Heights, Wells, Goodfellow, and Walnut Park neighborhoods. And I am sad as I still drive through the community that I live in. I'm still on the west side. And I'm sad as I drive through my old community, my old neighborhoods, and there are vacant buildings, or my grandfather's house is no longer there. When I used to walk up and down West Florissant and go to school or go to the corner store, to the Walnut Park Library, there are many abandoned buildings that are boarded up there. It's not safe. And so I have fond memories, and I know what North St. Louis could be, and I want to restore it to its old beauty.
You tell about homeless people living downtown. What type of programs would you do to provide, assistance to the homeless?
So we have an excellent network of people who care for our unhoused with the continuum of care. And I had a couple of meetings with them, and they told me that right now the city really doesn't recognize the services that they deliver to our unhoused. And so we need to make sure that we're relying on them and to deliver services to our unhoused, and make sure that that everybody in the region is at the table, because our problems don't stop at our borders. And we need to bring everybody to the table with solutions for our unhoused, with solutions for crime and public safety, education, the list goes on and on.
So if you become the mayor of the city of St. Louis, what would be the first objective you would go? What would be your first goal?
Well, right now we have over $500 million on its way to our city in federal aid. And we need a mayor who's ready to disperse these funds with an eye towards equity and the experience to move quickly. So that means direct aid in the form of rent, mortgage, and utility assistance, small business grants for our small businesses, and help for our unhoused. It means standing up more mass vaccination clinics, as well as mobile vaccination clinics, with a focus on educating our public who are skeptic of getting the vaccine, as well as those who are marginalized. That also means setting up public Wi-Fi in our public spaces, so our children have access to Wi-Fi if they are still learning from home. And we want to set aside a pot of funds for public input, for participatory budgeting, because I don't know all of the needs, and I don't pretend to. So we're going to have town hall meetings. We're going to get people's input on how best to use the funds to help people within the parameters of the bill.
St. Louis is one of the most racist cities and separatist cities in the country. How do you envision bringing the city together, black and white? I mean, what that vision? What does that look like?
Well, if you look at the people who are supporting my campaign, I have a coalition of voters and supporters, and even those who haven't supported me in the past, all supporting this campaign. And they're not just from one section of the city, they're from all over the city, from north all the way to south. And what that shows you is that I already have the ability to build broad and diverse coalitions. If you look at the treasurer's race, which I won in August of 2020, I won 24 out of 28 wards. That means voters in 24 wards already support my leadership, and would support me for mayor. So I think that coalition is indicative of my ability to bring people together, not just in the city, but I also have endorsements and support from all over our region, our neighbors to the west and the east, with County Executive Sam Page, County Prosecutor Wesley Bell, a cadre of municipal mayors, and some elected officials in Illinois as well. Most recently, the city clerk of Chicago, as well as the lieutenant governor of Illinois, endorsed my candidacy.
South St. Louis, South Side and North Side is so split. How do you make sure North Side get just as much equal amount of assistance they get over in South St. Louis?
Well, I believe that the people closest to the pain should be closest to the power. And right now, I sit where I sit is closest to the pain. And hopefully on April 5th, I'll be closest to the power. And you're right, our North and South are split, but it doesn't have to be that way. We need to have the hard conversations. I think we're overdue for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission personally, to really to tell the truth about why St. Louis is the way it is. That these were deliberate policy decisions made by previous administrations to abandon North St. Louis and to abandon parts of South St. Louis. And we need to change. We need to change the tide and move forward in a new direction. And that means having someone at the helm who has lived these experiences. I think that there's something different when you have actually lived this experience and then are closest to the power to be able to lead. And then also just making sure that we have these conversations going forward. And really telling the truth about why St. Louis is the way it is and charting a path forward.
You got the NGA big project in St. Louis, other developments going to be having the stadium. How do we reassure the Black community that they will be able to participate in some of the redevelopment, some of the contracts that Blacks has been getting turned down for a long time?
Well, one of the great mayors of our past that I've studied, his name is Maynard Jackson. He was the mayor of Atlanta for many, many years. And one of the things he said is that I don't have a set aside program. I just set it aside. And that means being unapologetic in pushing towards inclusion and participation for Black businesses. Black and brown businesses. So there are a few things that can happen. Number one, we have the 2030 jobs plan, which includes a focus on Black and brown businesses. There's a partnership currently through the Treasurer's Office with John Hope Bryant and Operation Hope that has a commitment to expanding 1 million Black businesses nationwide. We can pair those two things together to really explode Black and brown entrepreneurship in the city. But also we have to look at our community benefit agreements attached to these projects. And if there isn't one, then I still don't think it's too late to negotiate one. And that includes things like making sure that people who are hired come from the community, could be a part of the agreement.
Crime is at an all-time high in our city. Kids are dying at an alarming rate. Women are getting murdered. I mean, I have never seen anything like this. What is your plan? How do we stop this senseless killing and murders that's going on in our community?
Well, first off, we have to put the public back in public safety. And that means turning away from our arrest and incarcerate model to one that leads with prevention. We need to work with our communities to develop strategies that work for and with them. We currently have Cure Violence that's starting to see some improvement in the neighborhoods that it's piloted in. I support bringing the original people back to the table so we can implement Cure Violence as it was supposed to be implemented initially. That also means deploying the right professional to the right call. Up to 50% of the calls in the North Patrol District could be answered by someone other than police. And this also frees up police to do police involved work. So there are many things that we can do, and we can't just condense it into 10 points. We have to use all of the prevention resources on the table. And again, crime and violence don't stop at our borders. We need a mayor with relationships to the West and the East to bring everybody to the table. We need to declare gun violence as a public health crisis. And that brings everyone to the table, your flagships, universities, your civic leaders, your business, your faith community. We need to realize that our destinies are shared. And if St. Louis City fails, the rest of the region fails and the rest of the state fails.
You hear people saying defund the police. What is your take on defunding the police department?
Well, what we currently have is not working for anyone, is it? Let's be honest. What we currently have is not working. So what I see in this movement is a chance to totally transform public safety. And again, that means putting different types of professionals within the police department or adjacent to the police department and the public safety department. So we deploy the right professional to the right call. That means licensed clinical social workers. That can mean community health workers, substance abuse counselors, mental health counselors, and actually case manage the people that we come in contact with, so we can then connect them to the services that they need. Because not only is crime bad, we are also #1 in the nation for the number of police involved shootings. So how do we lead with de-escalation and try to make sure that we are not shooting first and then asking questions later?
What is your take on reforming criminal justice system? I mean, Kim Gardner, with all transparency, is a very good friend of mine. What kind of relationship do you have with Kim Gardner, and what would be your direction on working with the police department to get some things corrected?
Right. And this is where leadership matters. And right now, the police department, or through the police chief, does not have a great relationship with Kim Gardner, or neither does the mayor's administration. And we need to stop that. We need to stop this siloing and attacking each other and throwing pot shots at each other. And we need to bring everybody back to the table to level set and set expectations. I have a great working relationship with Kim Gardner, and she's been a friend of mine for years. So when elected, this sort of back and forth between the police chief and the circuit attorney stops because the chief of police reports indirectly to the mayor, but the mayor sets the tone. And so we need a mayor who will set the tone for a new era of collaboration and cooperation between the circuit attorney's office and the police department to make and to give the circuit attorney resources in order so she can be successful with diversion programs and the other progressive things that she ran on, and to make sure that she can keep her promises to the people of the city of St. Louis.
And once again, I mean, I think this is very vital to me when I look at the NGA that's been built and a lot of the construction work on the new stadium, or when I drive by these sites, I don't see a lot of Black folks out there working. And how do we assure African Americans an opportunity just to get a nice living wage like other communities? What does that look like?
That looks like intentional investment in our community. And that means, to me, making sure that we are holding the construction firms accountable. Right now, the SLDC is supposed to be giving a report annually to see if we are meeting our goals as set in the ordinance, the minority participation ordinance. No one has seen these reports. We don't even know if the data exists. So that means holding SLDC accountable for making the reports, and then also being intentional about building capacity for Black businesses in our city, making sure that they have a bail team, and not just bailing out of jail. I mean, B stands for banker, A stands for accountant, I stands for insurance agent, and L stands for lawyer. And so if each company has a bail team, then they are prepared to make, and giving them the technical assistance that prepares them to be able to go out and bid for larger contracts. But we also need to make sure that we're providing the technical assistance for them to do so. You know, it always kind of made me really upset when I would see Otis Williams say, well, we have $1 billion in investment in the city. And I'm like, well, why don't we have more Black millionaires? If we have $1 billion in development going on in the city, well, where are Black millionaires? Because that's what happened in Atlanta, you know, billions of dollars in investment, and you have Black businesses thriving and growing. So what are we doing to make sure that Black and brown businesses are thriving and growing in the city? And again, that comes from the top, and it comes from someone who has the experience of helping Black businesses grow.
St. Louis, as you know, like we talked about earlier, is a very segregated and racist city. Why do you feel they would trust a young Black lady such as yourself to be the leader of the community of the city?
Well, I think that people have confidence in my leadership over the last 8 years as treasurer, and previous 4 years before that in the state legislature. And they know that what they see is what they get. And they've seen my work. My work speaks for me. In the treasurer's office, I've been able to transform 2 departments and create a third with the Office of Financial Empowerment. And again, they know me. They've seen my leadership. They've seen it grow over the last several years, and know that I am capable of leading on day one.
Good, because day one, if you become the mayor of the city of St. Louis, what would Mayor Tashara Jones do on day one?
Well, on day one, we would the budget process will start. So that's day 2 actually, and so I am looking forward to closing the workhouse, or starting the process to close the workhouse, and work with the comptroller to zero out the budget for the workhouse. We will transfer the rest of the employees at the workhouse to the CJC, but we will also start to make the needed repairs at the CJC or the central or the jail downtown. We can walk and chew gum at the same time, but that doesn't mean that we're going to close it immediately. I want to close it within the first 100 days. That means we'll also have to start to hire a diverse and inclusive staff. That also means that we'll start to distribute or put a plan together to distribute these federal funds that are on their way to our city.
With that in mind, with the federal funds coming up, what is your take on the minorities and women being a part and being included in those type of dollars that comes in the city? Because history has proven a lot of Blacks, minority, and women are not part of the whole picture of inclusion.
Well, I'll let my track record speak for me, in that a Black woman-owned business was just awarded a contract in my office, a multi-million-dollar contract in my office for parking, not parking enforcement, but for parking, for the Parking Violations Bureau, parking meter maintenance and collection. And she was awarded that contract because she's qualified. And so, again, I have experience working with Black businesses and giving them opportunities to succeed. And so I approach this through the lens of racial equity. And one of the things that we'll do is appoint a deputy mayor for racial equity to look at every contract, every dollar spent, and every policy through a racial equity lens. We cannot lead the city forward without paying attention to racial equity and without ignoring half of the city like we have been for the last several decades.
Sarah, how do we make the city better? How do you make the city better as mayor?
Well, I think that my election, first and foremost, will make the news for something good instead of something crazy like we have been over the last several months. And we will send a signal to the world and to the country that St. Louis is ready for progress by electing a Black woman as mayor. And again, I'm a single mom. I live in the community that I was born and raised in over on the West Side, and I approach leadership from a different viewpoint. Not meaning to get too religious, but I view leadership through a Matthew 25:40 mindset. I do this for the least of these. I don't do this for the money. I don't do it for the fame or the fortune, because there's really not a lot of money to be made in politics. And you put yourself out there for everybody to scrutinize. It's not a sexy job. It is definitely a hard job. But I do this because I am ready to serve. I see the single moms who were struggling to make ends meet. I see the LGBT plus youth who are wondering if St. Louis is a home for them. And I see people who think that their government has left them behind and flat out forgotten them. I see all of that, and I'm ready to serve them.
Tashara, you got 60 seconds to tell St. Louis and our viewing audience why should they vote for you to become the next mayor of the city of St. Louis.
Well, great. Well, thank you for having me. When I was growing up in the Walnut Park, Hamilton Heights, and Wells Goodfellow neighborhoods, I wanted to be many things, but going into politics was something I said I'd never do. Well, my mama, God rest her soul, always used to tell me that the quickest way to make God laugh is to tell him what you would never do. See, it's one thing to have a platform, but something totally different to execute that platform. And that's exactly what I've done in the treasurer's office the last 8 years. I'm the only candidate in this race with the executive experience of turning a vision or platform into a reality, the management experience of managing a staff of hundreds of people and a budget of millions of dollars, and the existing relationships on the local, state, and national level to put St. Louis back on the map. This is about everybody, whether they live in Penrose, Holly Hills, or everywhere in between. Let's build a new St. Louis together, because we don't have time for leadership to learn on the job. We need a mayor ready to lead, govern, and unify on day one, and I will be that mayor.
Tashara Jones, Treasurer Tashara Jones, the City of St. Louis, good luck. Thank you very much for joining me tonight to let our viewing and listening audience hear your platform. Thank you so much. I'm truly honored, and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. This won't be the last time we talk.
No doubt.
All right.
Good luck. All right. Take care. Folks, this is what I need. I need everybody to get out there and vote. It's very important that you go and vote. Whoever you vote for, whomever you want to vote for, it is important that you go and vote. Voting is it is so important. The 6th of April, less than a week to go. It is important you get out there and vote. We need you to vote. People have died. People have lost their lives for this opportunity to vote. If things don't change in your community, it's not going to change because it don't change because nobody wanted to change. It's going to be because you didn't want it to change because you didn't get out there and vote. Hey, exercise your free will. Go and vote. Whomever you want to vote for, you do that. I want to thank Alderwoman Kara Spencer for coming on and being a part of this. And I'd like to thank the Treasurer, Tashara Jones, for coming and listening and being a part of this. Folks, and thank you. Share this video to all your folks that you can. We need to get out and vote. Please do that. We need you guys to get out and vote. And stay tuned on Monday. This coming Sunday, I may have some other things about this voting coming up with both of the candidates on Hot 104.1, my radio show. It is so important to get out and vote. Thank you for watching. I truly appreciate it. I'm humbled anytime you guys listen and watch me. I'm so honored. Please share the video with your friends. We need to get out and vote. Regardless of who you vote for, get out and vote. Exercise your right. People, once again, people have lost their lives for this honor. And for someone to tell you voting is irrelevant, it is so freaking stupid to say that. Because if that's the case, Georgia would not be trying to implement all these rules that change the voting structure in Georgia. Please get out and vote. Thank you. Make sure you listen up this coming Sunday morning at 8 to 10 on Hot 104.1. And folks, we're going to be at the Delwood Rec Center this coming Saturday. You got kids, bring them out for our Easter egg hunt, which start at 11 o'clock in the Delwood Recreation Center. Thank you for joining me. I truly appreciate it. I'm humbled every time you watch and follow me. The big fella's out. I'll see you this coming Sunday. Thank you.